Carcass, take 1, AB cam. Carcass, take 1, C cam.
Thank you for doing this.
All pleasure.
In our...
But you know, we don't want to be forgotten.
No, absolutely. We don't want to forget you, so I'm glad we all can make it happen. So Jeff, just start with you. We'll get into the discussion here. Take you back to the late 80s here in England. What was the state of metal at that time, broadly speaking?
Probably in its heyday. Late 80s or early?
Yeah.
Late 80s. What, you're talking about when we started? When we started?
Around the time, yeah.
I don't know, good days. I don't know. What stage? Must have been something missing because we decided to play music, so...
Yeah.
Was it?
I mean, around 87, we were more kind of, if anything, we were submerged in the hardcore scene, really.
Yeah.
Even though we were a metal band in our minds, we only really played with hardcore bands in the early years, which shares a lot, I guess.
Well, thrash was at a time, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we didn't really, we liked some of the early thrash, but we didn't like what came after.
No, the English bands trying to be the Bay Area. We couldn't stand that. So, I mean, that's what encouraged us to do what we did, you know? It's,
So where were your influences coming from?
the usual Slayer, Possessed,
Death.
Master, yeah. I mean, the original death metal bands, what? Insanity, Arch Enemy from California, Possessed,
Repulsion, of course.
Repulsion, can't miss out, FCDN Tormentor, Palladium bands, Old Morbid Angel, Nocturnus. Don't mind you, a bit later.
Yeah, that was a bit later.
Any punk stuff as well? Were you listening to punk?
Yeah, DRI, MDC, Crucifix, Discharge, all the hardcore stuff, Deep Wound, Siege, all the faster stuff. I mean, that was the kind of melting pot of what's going on. That was fertile ground at that time. All the punk stuff was getting faster, and that had an influence on all the metal bands. So,
Do you think that early stuff then with Carcass was a marriage of kind of those two sides, the metal stuff and the punk to some extent, or?
yeah, but not. I always hated that word crossover, because I was in a kind of crossover band called Electro-P's 85, 86, and that was definitely more kind of, American hardcore meets metal, and we never really tried to be a hardcore punk band. We definitely took the aggression.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the guitar perspective, I mean, we looked at it as being metal, but we were quite sloppy in the beginning, so I guess it sounds a little bit more punky or whatever you might want to call it. Yeah. But that was an accident, really.
So going back to that very first record, I remember playing it on my radio show, Little Victoria, BC, as a teenager.
We apologize.
Jeff, what was as best you can, what's the sound of the band at that time? How would you characterize it?
Chaotic, amateurish, brutal as fuck. I mean, it's a year zero, I think, for death metal to a certain extent. I mean, there were no death metal albums, we wanted to make the most brutalist, heaviest, nastiest album. And in some respects we succeeded, and in other respects musically we failed, because it's a musical abortion, but it is what it is, and I think it's cool for what it is. We've since made up ground and made up for those sins, but yeah, we were just really unrehearsed, and it's just a band growing up in public. I mean, I guess we were too young to be making an album.
And Bill, but this term grindcore was applied to what you guys were doing, not necessarily death metal per se. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to me, that term is retrospective, actually, because it was coined by Mick Harris in Birmingham, and his little group of mates used that term, and I didn't really hear anybody else use it. And then years after the fact, all of us are getting called grindcore, but at the time I don't really remember being tagged with that.
Napalm would call themselves thrashcore, and that was the thing with all these English bands. It was always something core, And again, I was in a band that called themselves something core, and it was just like, I hate that word core. It's like so kind of. I mean, grindcore to me now means something completely different. It's a bit like what black metal's become. You don't think of Venom anymore when you think of black metal. You're thinking of Norway. It's the same with grindcore. It's become something that it wasn't when we were doing it back in the late 80s.
Right. And yet the death metal, I mean, but at the same time, you guys, the sound, especially in the early days, was very different than what was coming out of Florida and the Bay Area. I mean,
yeah, because I mean, traditionally stuff from North America is a little bit more professional and polished, and stuff in the UK tends to be a little bit more amateurish. That's a generalization, but I think it holds true for extreme metal of that period. Obviously, as Jeff said, later on we did become a little bit more proficient. By the time we hit album number 4, it was actually sounding almost slick, but the early stuff, compared to what was happening in the States, I mean, it was rough as hell.
That's cool. Obviously, we've got to tread the well-trodden material of the whole visual environment of the band. Jeff, tell me about, describe those early album covers and what was the impulse to take things in that direction?
I think we were just kind of disappointed when, say, a band like Death released Scream Bloody Gore with the replica painting. We were like, damn, this is disappointing. The Carcass sleeve is what we envisaged death metal was about to a certain extent, wasn't it? I mean, we weren't really interested in the cartoonish elements of it. We wanted it to be more real, yeah. So that's why we used the photographs from the medical books. It was a bit pretentious as well. It's more of an arty kind of, we're trying to be Throbbing Gristle Psychic TV vibe, that kind of reality thing to it. We were never really interested in comic books and that kind of thing, so more real horror films and what have you. So.
Right. But also at that age, we were just all about extremity, musically and visually, everything. So it fitted perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, to just go back to what you said about why we didn't sound like the American bands, we started, we started down tuning 2.5 Steps to be in early '87. No other band was doing that then. I mean, it's normal now, but it definitely had an impact on the actual sound of the band because it was a lot more dirgy.
Didn't give it that sort of clean, more sound, kind of packaged presentation.
But we couldn't achieve the results anyway because we were going to rubbish studios in England.
I've got to ask you, of course, about the medical dictionary inspiration to the story of your sister. Apparently, was
yeah, it's
in
true.
medical school. So, can you tell me that story?
Well, I mean, all those lyrics were originally influenced by Ken. He kind of, lit the flame. I kind of took it to a more extreme because, my sister was a nurse. There's a medical dictionary, so I just started to flesh out the lyrics with more fancy words, trying to be clever. I don't have a doctorate or a PhD. My English is as terrible as anyone else. Fuck is my second favourite word. So that's all it is, really,
Yeah. Was it absurd for the purpose of being absurd? Were you taking the piss? Did it have?
It's definitely gallows humour. It's definitely funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot more humour in Carcass than people would imagine. I think towards the end of the Carcass, before we split up originally, it was getting a bit too serious. There was definitely a lot of humour in what we were doing.
Right.
A lot of piss taken.
Right. No, so here's a philosophical question. I'm going to get into later, but why doesn't it go mainstream? What is it that actually does sort of? There is this wall that it's like it almost gets there, and then it runs up against the wall that it's never going to get through.
Isn't metal music for outsiders? Not everyone feels they're outsider, do they? That's why you got bands like Five Finger Death Punch. They're for people on the inside, for jocks and people who go to the gym. The music we make and the other genres of music you're discussing, that's what people live on the periphery of society. That's what makes it interesting. If it was for the mainstream, it'd be like a Hollywood blockbuster. It'd be bland and boring, wouldn't it? So, not an art house film. That's my take on it. I mean, in the day, there's a reason why people like music, like melody, they like singing. There's not much singing in death metal.
Well, this is what it seems though the thing that keeps on coming up in my interviews with people about extreme metal is that the guttural vocal is somehow this very human dividing line. That there's something about, because when I was 14 and I put on Malters of Madness for people that weren't into metal, I'd be like, fucking isn't this fucking amazing? Like I heard fucking greatness. And they're like, oh, the music casket's heavy. They're on for the ride. And then David's voice comes in and they're like, just lost me. Why did they have to do
Yeah, but I mean, it has changed a bit because, of course, you've got very, very successful bands where people are shouting and shrieking. But usually it's tempered by a bit of melodic vocal or whatever it might be.
Hasn't falsetto vocals got marginalised nowadays, though, as well? It's kind of like, not many people would bang on about Manowar anymore, saying they love the vocals. And they're saying with a lot of the old stuff, it's... tastes have changed, isn't it?
But going back to what Jeff said, I think the main thing that I've seen with metal that's changed over the last couple of decades really is the fact that it was outsiders music. And the idea that you get into a band to try and be popular and meet girls and, and have a career and make loads of money, that's quite a recent thing. Going back to the old days, it was just a bunch of misfits. You know, you were accepting that you were just an outcast and you were going to do this separate thing that was only going to be listened to by a handful of people. And I guess at some point it became a lot more popular.
That's the good old days when it's precious and worthwhile. It's been ruined.
Ah, nostalgists.
The old men then.
Back to Heartwork though, did the Columbia the exposure, did it help you guys in any way, or was it just a failure?
Well, we sold more albums than we ever did, and it was probably our most successful album, but never got us on any big tours. And I mean, we did one tour with Life of Agony, and I'm not lying when I say it was in Nashville. There's probably 15 people there, and after they finished playing, 5 people left, so we played to 10 people. So this is kind of the giddy heights that we were on while it's being funded by Sony, you know. It was a good experiment.
So let's shift to present day for a few final questions. You guys are up there again. What's it like now as compared to back in the day, as we call it?
It's good. It's enjoyable. It's fun. There's an audience.
Completely different, I would say.
Yeah, how so?
Well, firstly, we could never, like we said earlier, I mean, when we reformed, I'm not sure about Jeff or anybody else, but I had loads of people saying, well, it must be great to be back playing to these audiences. So we were playing, to 40,000 people in France at that time, Hellfest or whatever. And I was always saying, we never did this before. The largest audience we played to in the old days was like 4,000 in Poland or something. That whole scene of festivals and enormous crowds and metal being hip, it didn't exist in those days. So it's really changed.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there was only Eindhoven. Dynamo. That was the only festival in Europe, really, except for the Monsters of Rock thing, which is more your Dios and I mean.
Yeah.
No, you can't leave this pub without falling over a fucking festival, you know? It's just nuts.
Yeah. So that's just something. Apart from the joy of playing in front of more people, what do you get out of it now compared to the back then?
God.
Is it more rewarding, less rewarding? Do you have a different perspective on it now than you did back then?
But it's more or less the same thing, just, naturally you're kind of going to enjoy it more because you're grateful for everything, at a later stage in life. If you're 18, you're not grateful for anything, you've got no perspective whatsoever. We'd never had jobs or, all of us just wandered out of whatever education we finished straight into a band and just did that. So I guess the in-between time was a period where we could actually get to grips with real life. And then when you do go back to the band, you're just really enjoying it naturally because you're aware of how lucky you are, And it's the playing thing. God, I mean, it's a bug you never get rid of. If you grew up playing and you're obsessed with music, as we are, then you just can't get rid of it.
It's interesting. Makes me think about. I think maybe some small myths we've had some part in debunking through our work, which is that it's not just for pipsqueaks. It's not just for teenagers. Because when I talk to people like Bruce Dickinson, he says, "Well, we're better now." You listen to Live After Death compared to, say, the Flight 666 soundtrack. It's like. It's like worlds apart. It's way better than Live After Death. This is my favorite live album of all time.
Yeah.
So do you feel more proficient at what you do now?
But there's a difference between something being played better and it being soulful and capturing the moment. Are we better musicians than we were when we were younger? Yes. Doesn't necessarily make you a better band though. 'Cause I'm sure you could speak to people who saw us in 1988 when they say we were better then than we are now. It's people's just personal perspective, isn't it? And how proud they are of those memories and all they got from the experience.
Sure. What about barking out those lyrics? Is it the same?
Automatic pilot. I can just a couple of pints and it's just there. It's amazing. And I don't even have to think about it.
So a broader question, Bill.
What the fuck are we getting Firebird for?
Why does it why does this extreme music endure? Why is it that you guys can be back in 2013, be playing more people than did back then? I mean, this is music on the edge. This isn't it. This is about as extreme as you can get.
But then is it now? I mean, with Carcass, I don't know if we're that extreme anymore. The passage of time has softened everything we did. I know one thing, it's outstripped our expectations, because when we were younger, we used to talk about this all the time, and Jeff was really vocal about it. He always said, in 2 years, this band will be over and no one will ever remember it. And gradually, I just got beaten down and kind of agreed with him. And
I don't remember this.
yeah. But what we hadn't realized was that, music lasts. And when you make a record, it's like putting a message in a bottle, and you don't know when somebody's going to be paying attention to it, or when they're going to receive it, and how and what they'll do with it. But you just put it out there. It's no longer yours.
But it's like nostalgia is the new rock and roll. You've got a generation now who've got jobs that probably didn't see bands like us or whoever who've reformed, and now got disposable income, and they're quite happy to go to Vakken or Hellfest, and it makes them feel young again. It makes us feel young, makes the audience feel young. I mean,
some of them are.
I've got a 20-month-old. I've had Carcass on in the car. You certainly enjoy it. Jeff, does it surprise you that you're here playing to 40,000 people?
It does, because I think we're both as guilty as each other, saying we'll never ever do it again. And especially after what happened with Ken, you do think, because there's many bands I've been into that I've never wanted them to reform.
Yeah.
But when you're on the inside, it's different. It's all I can tell you is our motives are genuine. We're not getting rich off this. We're not driving Lamborghinis. And we're doing it just for the crack still.
But there's something, I guess, about the music you created that has carried. Another good example is At the Gates. Thomas Lindbergh. When I talked to him about this, when they came back. I went to, they played at the Opera House in Toronto or something like that. And I looked around at who was in the audience, and I was like, who are all these people? And when Thomas shouted, "Go" in Slaughter of the Soul, I couldn't hear him say it because everyone in the crowd said it louder than him. And I was like, what happened? It got bigger.
American metalcore, that's what happened.
Well, but it got bigger in the space of time that had elapsed when they weren't around.
Yeah.
Same thing has happened to you guys.
Exactly. Yep.
So, why do you think that is?
Because most modern music's rubbish.
You're allowed to say that you think your music is good.
Yeah. But I just think every music has a time and a place, and our timing was way off when we did those records. It was the wrong thing.
But if we did it now, we wouldn't survive. Because back in the day, there was no death metal albums. That's why our band existed. We were fulfilling a gap, not in the market, but in what we wanted other musicians to be doing. We didn't think they were delivering. Again, the market's so clogged now with bands. If Carcass existed, we wouldn't go noticed, We had an impact at that time because we were doing something different. Even if you lump us in with Morbid Angel, Napalm, and all our contemporaries, all those bands are different though, We don't all sound the same. To the untrained ear, we do, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's that bizarre human phenomenon, right? When someone dies, they get 10 times bigger. It seems to be the case with you. Maybe you're a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's not a death, then it's a breaking up. That's the next best thing in terms of getting respect or recognition.
But you either lead the pack or you follow. What's the point in following? Okay, you might get in a band and make some money, but as an artist, it's more fulfilling to be creative than just to be regurgitating someone else's stuff.
There is something interesting in metal, however, and you don't see this in all other genres of music, where it's sort of like you respect your elders. There's this element of you need to understand where things come from.
That's an element.
We're losing that now.
No, I was going to say there's an element of that, but it's only in a certain strain of the music. Because I think the stuff that's aimed more at, I don't know, teeny boppers or whatever you want to call them, or the jock audience, I don't know if they're that concerned with the history of the music or whatever.
But in metal, I would argue that people are paying their homage to you guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we definitely had plenty of people doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I do think there are some bands that have got very big, probably not knowing much about the history of music.
Yeah.
Right. But you know that I mean that's new metal and onwards, obviously, and that's a different thing. You know, that's million selling stuff. So
Are you suggesting it's cool to love Carcass now?
no, it's never been.
Well, it's always been cool to nick our ideas, apparently.
Well,
I never goes any.
what do they say about
thanks.
flattery? It's the best form of compliment. But where do you see? Last question. If you had a crystal ball, where is it going? Extreme music. Is it inspiring for you guys to see where extreme metal, death metal, black metal, whatever you want to call it, is going?
Because the glory days were back when we were young. We're old men now. I mean, it's never got any better than it was.
Yeah.
You think?
I think that there's always room for innovation because, you know, at any given time there's an artist or several artists doing something interesting. But as Jeff said, it's kind of harder than ever to find those people doing those things because in any genre there's always a really great fertile time for the music, and that can't last forever. You can't be red hot all the time. So
Also, age taints your viewpoint.
yeah, for
It
sure.
really does. The things that make you glow and make you feel warm inside, the CDs or the records you hear,
Yeah.
other people are, what's this person getting from that experience? But it's very personal, isn't it? The songs you're going to hear, even pop music from when you were a teenager or a child, that'll take you back to those days.
Yeah.
And it's not something you can just cynically create.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I guess what I was getting at with the metal and sort of respecting your elders thing is that is simply to point out that you see it. You see it. Maybe you're suggesting that people are just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not sure, but there's not a lot of genres where you can get a band like Carcass, or you get a band at the Gates come back and maybe even be a little bit big at the Gates without question.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
bigger now without question.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Significantly bigger now than they were in 95, 96 whenever they broke up. You don't see that a lot in other genres. I guess, is there something in metal that's unique?
I think if we take Out the Gates as an example, the bands that plagiarised them just weren't as good as Out the Gates. So Out the Gates come back and blow them away.
And maybe the same as with Carcass.
I'd hope so, but it left them the bell in this one.
It depends on how far somebody's willing to delve back into the music anyway, because if you look in terms of, you know, the chronology of things, there are certain bands in the States who are very influenced by In Flames and At the Gates, but they wouldn't necessarily consider Carcass an influence. It's just that little bit too early. So we don't go into any situation assuming people know about whatever we've contributed, because plenty of people don't. We're just chuffed that there's some people who are into it, and you know, oddly enough, most of the front rows at the gigs we do are generally people who are way too young to have been there originally. So I guess that says something.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.